Hello everyone, back to today's video. Going to have a look at weather next week, 10 days. In today's video, this takes us very close now to the end of October. Been a very warm October so far, and in fact we are on the periphery at the moment of having our warmest October on record. Of course there's a few days left to go, and whether we do that or not is quite touch and go at the moment, I think, but we're certainly not going to be all that far away from it. I'll talk you through the warmest Octobers on record in a second. So, before I get on with that, though, just say that later on today we're going to have a free monthly update from the JMA model. That'll take us from next month, November, through December and into January as well. So that's going to be quite an interesting update. Of course, that goes into the seasonal roundup for the winter that we'll do at the end of the month, the final Sunday of October. We always put the JMA within those seasonal roundups. But there's so much information you can get from the JMA model that we'd like to take that one out, have a look at it on its own terms. So that's what we'll do this afternoon. It'll go from November through to January. So quite a couple of interesting updates coming up at the website. Today, we're going to start off with Central England temperature. So updated provisionally up to yesterday, 18th of October, we are standing at 13.6 degrees, an anomaly of 2.2 degrees above average, over 2 degrees above average. Very warm month indeed so far, Central England region anyway, and I assume that's pretty representative of most parts of the country. So these are the Central England temperatures going right way back to 1900. We can go back to 1900 on this page. This is from Professor Trevor Harley's weather website. And we'll scroll back down to 2017. So this is our year just here. We've got 2017 just there, of course. So we know what happened. January was about average. Then we had a long run of very warm anomalies from February through to June, just there. Then July, August and September coming out with less of an anomaly. Now, July was still quite warm at 16.8, but wasn't as warm in terms of its anomaly as the month before it. And then actually a couple of cooler months, or close to average really, for August and September. September's number is interesting because that comes out at 13.8, which is only ever so slightly above where we are right now at 13.6. So if we was to keep this anomaly going, or this temperature at 13.6 going through to the end of the month, we would be very, very close to September's CT. Now, if we have a look at the October CTs going backwards, so we can see that in 2016, 2015, we actually have slightly milder than average Octobers at 11.0 and 10.9 there. Closer to average, perhaps, certainly compared to this month, but still a little bit above average. Our last really warm October was back in 2014, coming out at 12.5, and 2013 was also another warm October, coming out at 12.5 again. Our last quite cold October was quite a while ago now, in 2012. That comes out at 9.7. 2011 comes out at 12.6. That was quite a warm one. Let's scroll further back to 2010. That one was our last sort of very close to average October at 10.3. We also had another colder October in 2008 at 9.7. In between 2009 comes out at 11.6, quite warm. Our last very warm October, one of the warmest on record, and the last time it was above 13 or at or above 13 degrees in October for the CET was in 2006, quite a long time ago, 11 years ago now, coming out at 13.0. So it has been a while since we got up into the 13s for October. I suppose you have to say we're probably about due October CT in the 13s. Looks like we're probably going to get one for this month. And then before that, 2005, that comes out at 13.1 as well. Another very warm October. The warmest October on record is in 2001 at 13.3. So actually the CT we've got right now for October at 13.6, if we was to maintain this, we would beat 2001 the warmest October on record at 13.3. We would be 0.3 of a degree above the warmest October on record. Now, I've got quite a way to go for that, so it's very unlikely, I think, from where we are right now, that we will beat 2001. There's normally a little bit of a downwards correction at the end of the month. We might get a couple of colder nights anyway. So because we're quite close to that 13.3 with our 13.6 this month, I think it's quite unlikely that we will beat 2001, but it certainly isn't impossible. We will have to keep an eye on it. And if we just scroll back a little bit further, so let's go all the way back to 1969. That was also a very warm October at 13.0 once again, and 1968 also comes out with quite a warm October at 12.5. October has generally been warming along with many of the months of the year through the past sort of 20, 30 years. But as I say, it is a little while since we had an October with a CET at or above 13.0. The last time was 2006, 11 years ago. So we are probably due, I think, a very warm October into the 13s with the CT, and it looks like we're probably going to get one for 2017. Obviously, we'll keep you posted on that. This is from the JMA. This is indicating the temperature in the stratosphere over the North Pole at 30 HPA, which is one of the top levels of the atmosphere in the North Pole. So what we can see with this is that the grey line here is the trend line. That's sort of the average for this time of year. You can see it is a cooling time of year in the stratosphere, bottoms out around December and into January, and then gradually lifts up as we go through the first half of the next year. Where we are right now is indicated by the black line, so we can actually go back to September where we start off there. Where we are right now is just here, so we are a little bit cold on average with those stratospheric temperatures at 30 HPA. Have a look at 10 HPA, which is a little bit higher up, and again, same idea, we are colder than average. The black line is just there, the grey line is there. We are a little bit cold on average with those stratospheric temperatures, and that tells us that it'll be quite difficult to get any sustained blocking over North Pole because the polar vortex is cooling, the atmosphere, stratosphere is cooling, and that sort of will enhance the polar vortex a little bit. So we are a little bit cold on average now with those stratospheric temperatures over the North Pole. If you want blocking, you want to see this black line lifting up, or certainly going above the grey line, and really you want to see the black line doing something like that, getting a sudden stratospheric warming. Doesn't guarantee that you're going to get blocking, but if you do get a sudden stratospheric warming, which is a dramatic increase in the temperature over just 2 or 3 days in the stratosphere over North Pole, around 4 weeks later, 3, 4, 5 weeks later, it can translate back into blocking high pressures in the troposphere, the boundary layer of the atmosphere where weather takes place. And when you get that blocking over the North Pole, that's the route to pushing cold air out of the pole and down into the mid-latitude. So once we get into winter, certainly we will be looking to see whether there's any signs of either stratospheric warmings or even sudden stratospheric warmings. We are going into an easterly QPO this winter, which tends to increase the risk of getting a stratospheric warming, but there's never a guarantee with the weather. This is the Arctic oscillation observed and forecast chart from NOAA. The black line here going right way back into the summer. We can go back into June there. Tells us where we've been with the Arctic oscillation. The red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. Remember, this is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere over North Pole. It isn't driving anything, just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. When the Arctic oscillation is positive, it tells you that you've got low pressure over pole, and at this time of year that will be increasing the polar vortex and keeping the cold air bottled up over North Pole. When the Arctic oscillation is negative, you tend to have high pressure blocking over pole, and that can push cold air out of the pole and down into mid-latitudes. The crucial factor, of course, is where that blocking is sitting, because you've got high pressure blocking over pole, doesn't guarantee that the cold air will be pushed out into our particular part of mid-latitudes. The cold air might go down into America. Cold air might go down into Eastern Europe or Western Russia or even into Asia. So it's never a guarantee of anything, but we do keep an eye on the Arctic oscillation, particularly at this time of the year. So we're currently positive, and have been positive generally with the Arctic oscillation going back to the sun. We did have a little period of negativity just there through September, associated with quite a coolish September perhaps. But overall, we've been positive with the Arctic oscillation for quite a while. We're currently positive just there. GFS ensembles are forecasting us to stay on the slightly positive side of neutral for the next week, but then the final week of October, we are seeing strong positivity there of the Arctic oscillation. That's telling us that the polar vortex may well be strengthening as we go into the final days of October. That might be associated with this cooling of the stratosphere that's taking place. It is turning quite cold up in the stratosphere now over the North Pole, certainly cold on average. That increase in the Arctic oscillation that GFS ensembles are indicating for the last week of October into the very start of November just here, that might be associated with the cold stratosphere that's developing over North Pole. This for North Atlantic oscillation, same idea. Black line tells us where we've been with the NAO, the red lines at the end where GFS ensembles forecasting the NAO to go. Now, quite interesting because the two indexes have been out of sync. So you see that the Arctic oscillation has generally been in a positive phase, other than that period of negativity we had in the second half of September. Generally positive with the Arctic oscillation mode back to the summer. Not the case with the North Atlantic oscillation. So we can again go back into June with this, and the black line starts just there. Through June into the first half of July, that's in line, which is positive then. But a change took place in the second half of July where we went negative with the NAO, and generally we stayed negative then through the rest of the summer. A little period of positivity there at the end of August, but overall we stayed negative with the NAO through the rest of the summer and into the autumn as well. Into October, the NAO has gone a little bit more positive, onto positive side, but not as much probably as the Arctic oscillation. GFS ensembles are actually forecasting the NAO to go into more negative territory again through to the end of October into start of November. So where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the AO, the Arctic oscillation, to go very positive at the end of October, the NAO is being forecast to go quite negative. Remember, this index, the NAO, is reflecting the state of the atmosphere in the North Atlantic. It's basically looking at the pressure gradients from Iceland down to the Azores. And when the NAO is positive, you're going to have low pressure strengthened around Iceland and high pressure strengthened around the Azores. When the NAO is negative, it's the reverse. So you tend to have high pressure close to Iceland and low pressure around the Azores. So quite interesting the way this is working out this year, and it's quite unusual actually to see the indexes out of sync with one another like this over such a sustained period. So we'll keep an eye on the Arctic North Atlantic oscillations, of course, over the coming weeks, and they'll become more important actually as we get through into the winter. This is GFS ensemble then. I've gone on a little bit of a tangent there for the start of the video, so we'll just have a very quick look at the GFS ensemble for London today. This is depicting upper air temperatures, of course. Red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. Above average today, a little bit up and down actually with the upper air temperatures over the next couple of days through to the start of next week. So warm and average today, a little bit cooler than average tomorrow. Then we go warm and average briefly tomorrow night into Saturday, then cooler than average on Sunday. So a little bit of a zonal sine wave. Then early next week, it looks like we have another fairly long run of warmer than average upper air temperatures. Although as we get through to the very closing days of October into start of November, this period just here, have got a huge amount of scatter. Look at the difference between the two sides of the upper air temperature ensemble. So we have got some ensemble members that are going really very cool indeed. In fact, one or two that are quite cold there, but several are quite warm. So I think there's so much scatter ready for the last days of October inside of November, and it's in the extended range of model anyway. very difficult to decide what's going to happen. The white line here is kind of like the ensemble means. That's taking all those lines of spaghetti together and just coming up with a single line that represents all of them. It is a little bit warmer than average. So overall, the GFS ensembles are on the warmer than average side into the end of October, start of November. But with the caveat that there is a lot, I do mean a lot, of scatter. So from the warmest to the coldest members, coldest down here, warmest up here, we've got something like a 20-degree temperature difference between those warmest and coldest members for the very end of October. For precipitation, not as wet as it's been indicating over the past few days. So we have got rainfall spikes coming up. There will be wet weather, perhaps not quite as much as the GFS ensembles were indicating a couple of days ago. And then for the end of October inside of November, actually looking reasonably dry then. So I think this scatter that we see within the upper air temperatures is being caused by high pressure. I think we will be building in high pressure for the end of October. I talked about that in the video yesterday. Expect pressure to rise with high pressure coming back for the end of the month, possibly inside of November. But the position of this high pressure is very, very critical as to what air mass we get. But it could be quite warm, certainly with the upper air temperatures. There is a chance of bringing some colder air down into that high pressure. Temperature anomalies for next week, going from the 19th to 27th of October, are coming out warmer than average. Again, that's the case for virtually the whole of Europe, although Western Russia looks like it's starting to turn a little bit cooler in the week ahead. Precipitation anomalies are looking like this. Most parts of Europe are quite dry, but for the UK and Ireland, actually close to average. For Ireland, a little bit wetter than average. I'd expect those to trend drier over the next couple of days. Have a look at the GFS for Saturday. We've got quite a deep area of low pressure heading in off the Atlantic. This might be our next named storm system, Storm Brian. It could give gales and heavy rain on Saturday, Friday night into Saturday. That low pressure clears away on Sunday, leaving us windy, cool and showery. And then early next week, look what's happening. We've got low pressure out to the north and west of Scotland. High pressure is down to the south, and we're beginning to pull up some really quite warm winds again from the southwest. So although, yes, the weekend will be a little bit cooler, and just at the very start of next week, a little bit cooler then, looks like we'll bring up some warmer air from the south-southwest once more. This continues into the middle part of next week with high pressure becoming increasingly influential, blocking out these areas of low pressure out to the north and west, but really it's high pressure over the continent that's taking over pattern, bringing the winds up to the south. As we run up towards day 10, we look like that high pressure starts to become more centrally located over the top of the country. So a good deal of dry and fine weather developing as we head towards the end of October. Could be mist and fog by night, and the exact air mass that's within that high pressure is going to be very, very crucial indeed as to the feel of the weather. So there's the upper air temperatures at day 10. Quite cool air is just to our north and northeast, but then warm air is just to our south and southwest. So whether we finish October on a dry and warmish note, or where we finish it on a dry and quite chilly note, I think that is still to be determined, and we saw that from the scatter within the GFS ensembles. Finally, the ECMWF, so this is how things are looking on Saturday. Wet and windy to start the weekend. Going to be an unsettled weekend generally overall. Early next week, so low pressure is out to the north and the west, high pressure building to the south. There is a weather front that's within the flow here. It's in that sort of area. It may have ripples of rain running along it. So although it actually looks reasonably dry, especially for the south early next week, there will be wet weather around. It won't be quite that clear cut. Through the course of next week, so this high pressure continues to try and build to the south and the east. Low pressure being blocked out to the north and to the west as well. This is how we finish up on day 10 with high pressure increasingly dominating the weather. Again, its position is across Central Europe, so it's bringing the air up from a southerly direction, likely to be quite warm with the upper air temperatures. Anyway, let's just have a very quick look at those upper air temperatures at day 10 are looking like that. So really warm upper air temperatures, not that clear cut down on the surface. We've got long nights. We may have mist and fog. Nights could be chilly by this point, even with that level of warm upper air temperatures. And you notice some really quite cold air plunging down into western parts of Russia with these blue colours just here. So we may start to see the western Russian winter getting underway as we go through to the end of October. But for us, no signs certainly of anything particularly cold before the end of October anyway. And in fact, it may turn quite warm again next week, albeit also turning drier. So that's how it's looking. It appears that we are in for a drying trend as we go through towards the end of October. High pressure coming back. The exact position of that high pressure will be very important in terms of the feel of the weather as we go through to the final days of October and start of November. I think it's probably going to be quite mild, but there may be, particularly by night, some mist and fog to contend with. No sign of anything especially cold. But a bit of an extended update this first update today. Later on, we're going to have a look at the JMA for the next 3 months. It's going to take us from November through to January, so come back that this afternoon. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.